When we form emotional bonds with people, especially in close or intimate relationships, our brain isn't just passively observing, it's actively creating and reinforcing connections through powerful neurochemical activity. Every meaningful interaction, a kind gesture, a shared memory, even conflict followed by reconciliation activates systems in the brain that release dopamine and oxytocin. Dopamine creates a sense of reward, reinforcing the behavior that led to the interaction. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, deepens trust and connection. Over time, these repeated experiences form deeply wired patterns that make us feel attached, even when the relationship is unhealthy. This is why we sometimes stay connected to people who continually hurt us, not because we lack awareness, but because our nervous system is conditioned to associate their presence with familiarity and reward. That familiarity, even when painful, becomes a form of psychological safety. The brain prefers known discomfort over unknown peace because the known is easier to predict. This is not a weakness of character, it's simply the way the human brain has evolved to seek connection and security. Understanding this gives us clarity. It's not that we are broken or foolish for struggling to let go. It's that our neural circuitry is doing what it's been trained to do, hold on to what it believes is vital to our emotional survival. But the truth is, attachment isn't always a reflection of love sometimes, it's just repetition. And once we see that, we give ourselves permission to break the loop and rewire our sense of connection around what's actually safe, healthy, and deserved. Chronic exposure to emotional stress, particularly in the context of toxic or inconsistent relationships, has a measurable and damaging effect on the brain and body. When we are around individuals who trigger anxiety, confusion, or emotional instability, our brain activates the stress response system primarily through the release of cortisol, the body's main stress hormone. While cortisol is useful in short bursts for survival, repeated and prolonged elevation can become harmful. It begins to wear down the hippocampus, which is essential for memory and learning, and it disrupts the function of the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for reasoning, emotional regulation, and long-term decision-making. In this state, we don't think clearly. We become reactive, hypervigilant, and emotionally exhausted. We find ourselves overanalyzing, second-guessing, or constantly seeking approval just to feel safe again. This is not a flaw in our personality. It's a predictable result of being neurologically overwhelmed. The body cannot maintain a state of high alert indefinitely without consequences. Sleep is disrupted, immune function weakens, and emotional regulation deteriorates. We feel stuck not just emotionally, but biologically. When people say, just let it go, they often overlook the neurological inertia caused by this stress. Our brain clings to patterns, even painful ones, because it believes repetition offers control. But staying connected to pain does not offer peace, it only prolongs the damage. Letting go is not avoidance, it's intervention. It is a way of telling your brain and body, this is not sustainable, and making space for healing systems, both emotional and physiological, to take over. Letting go of someone who causes you pain isn't just an emotional decision, it's a biological one. When we remove ourselves from toxic dynamics, we stop feeding the neural circuits that have been keeping us trapped in cycles of conflict, anxiety, and hope. This is where neuroplasticity comes in, the brain's ability to change, adapt, and rewire itself based on new experiences. But neuroplasticity doesn't happen passively, it requires the absence of reinforcement. In other words, if we keep engaging with the same person or pattern, the brain has no reason to change. By stepping away emotionally, physically, digitally, we begin a process of neurological pruning. Old associations start to fade. The brain begins to allocate energy to new pathways, ones that aren't driven by fear, guilt, or longing. This might initially feel like emptiness or even grief, but it's actually space. It's space being cleared so that something healthier can be built in its place. It's the brain shifting from survival mode to recovery mode. This shift doesn't just impact thoughts, it affects mood, attention, energy, and even physical health. When we stop anticipating chaos or emotional inconsistency, our nervous system gets a chance to recalibrate. The vagus nerve, a key player in the parasympathetic nervous system, becomes more active, promoting calm, digestion, and restoration. Our sleep improves. Our ability to focus returns. We begin to feel like ourselves again, or maybe for the first time. Letting go is hard because the brain resists the unknown. But once we interrupt the old cycle, we give our mind the signal, it's safe now. We're not going back. And that's when the true work of healing and peace begins. 4-0. This creates a distorted internal model. The self becomes fragmented, shaped around someone else's mood, attention, or validation. We ask ourselves questions like, did I do something wrong? Or why am I not enough? Not because the answers are unclear, but because the brain has been trained to externalize its worth. Every moment spent in that mental loop reinforces the belief that peace comes from winning them over, not from reclaiming yourself. But the human brain is capable of recalibration. When we stop seeking identity in someone else's perception, we allow the default mode network to reconnect with our core self, the part that existed before the emotional noise began. This is not an easy transition. It can feel disorienting at first, even lonely, but what's happening beneath the surface is profound. The brain is learning that you are not a reflection of someone else's behavior. You are not more or less valuable based on who stays or who leaves. When we let go of those who diminish us, we begin to see ourselves more clearly, not through the lens of reaction or rejection, but through quiet recognition. And that shift from being defined by others to becoming self-defined is one of the most powerful neurological and emotional resets a person can experience. Peace is not just a poetic ideal, it's a measurable, physical state within the body and brain. When we talk about peace, we're referring to the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs rest, digestion, healing, and recovery. This is the state your body is designed to return to when danger passes. But in relationships marked by emotional volatility, gaslighting, or inconsistency, the brain interprets those dynamics as ongoing threat. Even without physical danger, emotional unpredictability triggers the same systems that evolved to protect us from harm. In this state, the sympathetic nervous system takes over, heart rate increases. Breathing becomes shallow, muscles tighten, and thoughts race. We call this stress, but biologically it's survival. The body is preparing for conflict, escape, or confrontation, even if none of those things actually happen. Over time, this stress becomes baseline. We forget what peace feels like because our nervous system has been stuck in high alert for so long, it feels normal. Letting go of people who keep you in that heightened state isn't just about protecting your feelings, it's about restoring your physiological equilibrium. When you remove yourself from emotional chaos, your breathing deepens, your heart rate slows, your digestion improves, your immune system strengthens, your mind becomes less reactive and more reflective. This is not wishful thinking, it's homeostasis, the body's natural tendency to return to balance when the threat is gone. Peace is not passive, it is not the absence of challenge, but the presence of internal clarity and safety, and you cannot access it when you are constantly negotiating your worth or bracing for the next emotional blow. Letting go creates the conditions for this peace, not because you gave up, but because your body and brain finally have permission to exhale. Letting go is not a sign of weakness. It is one of the most courageous, biologically necessary, and psychologically intelligent choices you can make. It requires confronting the truth that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay, and that not all connections are worth preserving, especially when they come at the cost of your peace. Your brain may resist it, your emotions may ache, but beneath the discomfort is an opportunity, the chance to reclaim your clarity, reset your nervous system, and rewire your patterns towards something healthier. This isn't about blame. It's about boundaries. It's about recognizing when your mind, body, and spirit are being pulled into cycles that no longer serve you and choosing with intention to break free. You deserve a life where your inner state is not dictated by someone else's chaos. You deserve mornings without dread, silence without anxiety, and love without pain. So let them go, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring for yourself. In doing so, you're not just walking away from pain, you're walking toward peace, the kind of peace that allows you to breathe fully, think clearly, and live freely. And that peace isn't a dream, it's a state your brain is wired to find. Let this be the beginning of returning to it.